If you are familiar with the practice of Ujjayi Pranayama, you can move into your Ujjayi breath here. So we're just sitting, breathing, arriving in this practice space, bringing yourself into Ujjayi Pranayama, whispering sensation and sound at the back of your throat, an audible breath. The breath is such a huge part of the Ashtanga Yoga practice, keeping our attention focused, bringing us into a space of uniting breath and movement. So continuing to breathe with your Ujjayi breath, somewhere in your next breath or two, you can slide off your sitting prop. Just set it off to the side for the moment. We'll rock forward to kneeling. So sitting back on your heels, and if you can, try to bring the inner edges of your feet right together. Pressing them in, you can reach back with your hands, get your heels and ankles right together. You can reach back with your fingers and tuck your toes. You could even lift your knees here, drop back into your heels a little bit, spread your toes, and then drop your knees back down to the floor. So we're really getting deeply into our plantar fascia here. If this is too much, you could stand up on your knees. You could also, if this is a little much in your knees, but you're enjoying the stretch in your feet, you can take a little support and place it on your heels with your hips slightly elevated. This will allow you to transfer the stretch into your feet, but will give your knees a little bit of a break. So giving ourselves some time here, 1 or 2 more breaths, trying to stay with your awareness of the Ujjayi Pranayama. And then somewhere in your next breath or two, we'll slide off our toes. You can release your toes, give them a wiggle, maybe pat the tops of your feet down onto the floor, taking them the other direction now. So toes pointing back, again, inner edges of your feet together if you can, pressing your heels in towards each other, settle your hips back towards your heels, and then you can lean back into your hands, and this might be enough. This might be plenty in your shins right now. You could also try softening your elbows and lifting your knees a little bit. Let's take a couple of breaths here, letting the fronts of the shins open up a little. Beautiful. You can rock back to kneeling. These next two are both my least favorite and my most favorite. You can rock forward, and this time we'll cross our feet. So you'll take the top of your left foot into the arch of your right. The top of your left foot is really pressing into your right plantar fascia. And you can sit back on your heels here. You'll try to arrange yourself in such a way that there is some sensation in the sole of your right foot. So settling in here, settling into your feet. If this gets a little intense, you can always stand up. You can always lean forward. If you can, it's sitting back with shoulders over hips and in a steady flow of breath. Beautiful. Once more, we'll rock forward. This time, you change the cross of your feet. You'll take the top of your right foot into the arch of your left. And again, you want to place the top of this foot somewhere in your left plantar fascia that when you place your body weight on it, you feel sensation. There's a sense of release. It may not be entirely comfortable. It may not be what you would describe as pleasant. There's some intensity there, but we're creating some release and opening in the bottoms of our feet. Nice. So again, maybe you stand up on your knees, maybe you need to lean forward. Maybe it feels perfectly reasonable and beneficial to have your weight right back over your feet. Let's stay here for another breath. And we'll again walk forward. You can release your feet. One more set. This time we'll cross just above our ankles. This one can be quite intense. Right now we're going for release in Achilles tendon and the bottom of your calves. So rather than crossing at the feet, instead you'll cross about 2 inches above your ankle bone. And again, sit down. So if you're able to sit all the way back, do. If that's too much, you can lean a little forward. If this is reasonable, you can even cup your knees, hug your belly in, and really drop your weight down into your ankles. With your next inhalation, you're going to walk your hands forward, change the cross of your shin. So we'll take right shin over the left. We've got our ankles crossed just about an inch and a half or 2 inches above the ankle bone. So you're just at the top of the Achilles tendon, the bottom of the flesh of your calves. And again, maybe it feels best to lean forward. This can be a little intense. Maybe you're able to take your weight right back. Maybe you can even cup your knees, hollow your belly, and really sink your weight into your ankles. Let's take one more full, steady Ujjayi exhalation here. And as you inhale, you'll once more walk forward. You can uncross your ankles, circle them around, maybe pat the tops of your feet onto the floor, wiggle your toes, whatever feels best to you. And when you are ready to come to standing, kind of stand at the top of your mat. We'll find Samasthiti, equal standing pose. So that means bases of your big toes together, heels just a little bit apart. If this feels awkward, you can always take your feet to the width of your hips. This is just the traditional standing pose, starting pose for our Ashtanga practice. And we'll roll through 5 rounds of Surya Namaskar A, Sun Salutation A together. So starting by rooting down into your feet, maybe noticing any effects of that practice, myofascial release practice in our lower legs. Coming back to the flow of your Ujjayi breath. And with your next inhalation, take your arms up and overhead, maybe even look up. Exhale and fold, Uttanasana. You can hinge at the hips, bend your knees if that's helpful. We'll inhale, halfway lift. And with the exhalation, hands plant, step back this first time through. And we'll lower. Some of us might come down to our knees, some might come down to our bellies, some might be ready for chaturanga, shoulders, hips, elbows, all the same height. As you inhale, roll through to your back bend. It could be cobra, it could be upward facing dog. We'll exhale back to downward facing dog. When you find your downward dog, take a moment to make a mindful adjustment or two. That might be repositioning your feet. It might be checking in with your hands and repositioning your hands if that feels necessary. It might be bending your knees and lifting your sit bones a little more. Eventually we'll settle into this shape. We've got 3 more breaths here. Slow, steady Ujjayi breaths as we hold an Adho Mukha Svanasana. At the end of your next exhalation, you can bend your knees and look forward. You might like to stroll forward or step or hop or float. We'll find a half forward fold and a full forward fold on exhalation. Inhale, let your breath lift you up to standing. You're lifting from the space between your shoulder blades. Exhale, Samasthiti. Inhale, take your arms up. Exhale to fold. We'll inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Plant hands, exhale, take your feet back and lower, maybe to your belly, maybe your knees, maybe chaturanga. Inhale, upward facing dog. Perhaps you could extend a little more. Exhale, downward facing dog. Again in your downward facing dog, check in with hands and feet. Broad shoulders, almost as though you're widening your feet away from each other on your mat. Sitting bones lifting, and as you lift your sit bones, there's a natural hollowing up and in of your low belly. Encourage that, lifting low belly. Let your chin soften towards the hollow at the top of your breastbone. We've got all 3 bandhas going on. Mula bandha, lower belly lifting. Uddiyana bandha, abdomen lifting. Jalandhara bandha, roof of mouth lifting. One more breath. You can exhale, bend your knees, look forward, walk or step or float. Half forward fold on your in-breath. Full forward fold as you exhale. Inhale, ride your breath all the way up to standing, look up. Exhale, Samasthiti. Keep going, building some heat as we inhale, reach up. Exhale and fold. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, take your feet back. If you're ready to float back, make sure you land in your chaturanga. Protecting your back and your shoulders. We'll inhale, upward dog. Exhale, downward facing dog. And settle in, 5 breaths. This time in your downward facing dog, notice what's going on in your shoulders. Sometimes we come into down dog and we kind of sag the shoulders and we press our heart towards our thighs. We let our shoulder blades sink towards each other. Let's counter that. Let's broaden the shoulders. Let's firm the outer edge of the shoulder blade. Press into fingertips, extend the hips away from fingertips, and then lighten up off your breastbone a little bit. So you're not pressing your chest back, but instead you're telescoping your spine long. Let's take one more breath. And you can bend your knees, look forward, walk or step or float. Half forward fold. Full forward fold as you exhale. Inhale to rise. Exhale, Samasthiti. 2 more rounds. Inhale, reach up. Exhale and fold. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, take your vinyasa. Upward dog on the in-breath. Downward dog on the out-breath. 5 slow, steady breaths. I talked about Svadhyaya at the beginning of our practice, self-observation. This pause in the activity of our Surya Namaskar is a wonderful place for some self-observation. Noticing sensations, noticing habitual alignment that maybe you could tidy up. Noticing where your thoughts go. At the end of your next exhalation, you can bend your knees, look forward, feet move to hands. Half forward fold, full forward fold as you exhale. Inhale to rise. Exhale, Samasthiti. 1 more round. This time I'll be quiet. I'll just practice with you. We'll meet back in Samasthiti. We'll take a moment or two in our Samasthiti. Feel free to close your eyes if that's interesting to you. Sometimes that brings more attention into sensation, maybe more attention into balance and the slight shifts we make to stay balanced. So we'll meet here, equal standing pose. Let's come through 3 rounds of Surya Namaskar D. So with your next inhalation, you'll bend your knees, tops of your shins slide forward as your ankles flex, hips slide back, belly hugs in, tailbone lengthens towards the floor, front ribs hug in, and you take your arms up. We're letting our weight center in the fronts of our heels. We'll take 1 more inhalation here as you exhale, fold, Uttanasana. Inhale, Ardha Uttanasana, and exhale through Vinyasa, back to Chaturanga, upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog, and the same exhalation steps your right foot forward. Let the left heel touch down to the mat. Inhale, reach, Virabhadrasana 1, first warrior. And exhale through your vinyasa, back to Chaturanga, nice and controlled. Upward dog on the in-breath. Downward dog on the out breath, and the same breath brings your left foot forward. Right heel grounds, pick it up. Virabhadrasana 1. Nice. Exhaling through chaturanga. And upward facing dog. And downward facing dog. Settle in 5 breaths. And at the end of your next exhalation, you can bend your knees, lift your sit bones, look forward, feet move to your hands. Half forward fold on the in-breath. Full forward fold on the out-breath. As you inhale, ankles flex, knees bend, hips reach back, heart and arms reach up, Utkatasana. And exhale, Samasthiti. Inhale, bend your knees, sweep your fingers down, and then up, find your chair. Exhale, fold to Uttanasana. We'll inhale, Ardha Uttanasana. And exhale, back through Vinyasa, stepping or floating, Chaturanga. Upward dog, downward dog, same breath, right foot steps. Left heel grounds to the mat. We'll inhale and reach. Virabhadrasana 1, exhale through Vinyasa. Chaturanga. Upward facing dog. Exhale, downward facing dog, left foot forward. That's all one breath if you can. Inhale, reach, first warrior. Exhale through the Vinyasa, Chaturanga. Upward dog. Exhale, downward facing dog, and settle. 5 long, steady Ujjayi breaths in Adho Mukha Svanasana. And at the end of your next exhalation, you'll bend your knees, lift your sit bones, walk or step or float. Half forward fold. Full forward fold as you exhale. Knees bend, ankles flex, belly hugs in as your arms reach up, Utkatasana. Exhale, Samasthiti. All right, one more round. Once more, I will be quiet. I will practice with you. We'll move through one more round of Surya Namaskar B and then move on. We'll meet back in Samasthiti. And you have a chance to pause feel and notice, maybe working with eyes closed for a moment, as you feel down into your feet. As you notice where your attention is drawn in your body. As you notice the nature and depth of your breath. You can bring your hands to your hips now, and we'll step our feet to the width of our hips. We want the midlines of our feet parallel to each other. Feet hip width apart, knees can bend slightly here. And as you inhale, you'll draw your shoulders back, lift your heart. As you exhale, hinge forward. We're going to try to make contact with our lower legs. So for some of us, that might mean grabbing the backs of your calves or knees. It might be reaching for ankles. Some of us will be able to contact our toes. If you can reach your toes, you'll use the yogi grip, index finger and middle finger between big toe and second toe, and then thumb wraps around the outside. Index finger and middle finger between big toe and second toe, thumb wraps around the outside. So we're grounded here, we're pressing into the base of the big toe. We'll take an inhalation to create some length from base of skull to hip creases, as long as you can get. And then as you exhale, hinge forward, we're spilling the pelvis forward around the heads of the femurs. If it's reasonable, elbows can bend out to the side, and we're working to lift the sitting bones and spread them away from each other. We're working to firm our quadriceps, and notice where your weight is. Frequently in this pose and in any of the standing forward folds, we end up with weight back in our heels, knees locked, and just kind of rounding here. So we want to bring the weight forward. Base of big toe, base of little toe, center of the heel are the three anchor points. And allow ourselves to hinge in the hips. And then maybe the spine releases into gravity. We'll take one more full exhalation here. You can inhale and lift halfway up. Release your big toes. Now we're going to try to slide our hands under our feet if we can. So that might involve bending your knees. It might involve just putting your fingers under. It might involve just moving your hands farther down the back of your leg. But if you can, Pada Hastasana. Padas are your feet, hastas are your hands. So your padas go on top of your hastas. And try to get your toes right into the crease of your wrist. Trying to flatten your whole hand out along the floor. So we're letting the weight shift forward. We're not back in our heels. You can even slightly traction your wrists forward, slightly pull your elbows out to the side as you deepen this forward fold. And that's 5 breaths. We'll inhale, release our hands. Exhale, belly hugs in as your spine gets longer, hands to your hips. Inhale, stand it all the way up. And we come back to Samasthiti, maybe stepping your big toes to touch. All right, now we'll take the weight into our left foot. Right foot steps way back towards the back of your mat, at least a leg length. So long step. One of the quirks of Ashtanga is now that we flip around and the back of our mat is now the front of our mat as we move into Trikonasana. So we'll turn our left toes in, we'll turn our right toes squarely to the short edge of the mat, and we send our hips to the left, torso to the right, Trikonasana. And maybe your right hand rests somewhere on your right leg. Maybe you have the opportunity to grab a book or a block or some other support. Some of us might be able to reach the right foot. And again, if you can, you would use your yogi grip, index finger and middle finger, to hook your big toe. Hug your front ribs in, rotate. We're looking for a length equally long on both sides. We're looking for a length in the back of our neck. And maybe left hand reaches for the ceiling as you turn your gaze towards your left palm. We've got 2 breaths left in Utthita Trikonasana, extended triangle pose. All right, you can turn your gaze down for balance. Bend your right knee slightly. We'll reach strongly up through the left hand. Come all the way up and turn your feet. The right toes pivot slightly in. Left toes now are pointing squarely towards the short edge of your mat. Your hips probably turn a little bit too, that's okay. And we'll now extend our arms, send our hips to the right, send torso to the left. Pelvis is spilling around the head of your left femur. Watch this knee. I just watched myself drop into the back of the knee and lock it. So I invite you to check in as well. Micro bend the knee, unlock it, firm up your quads. So you lift your kneecap, make a little space in that left knee. As you reach forward, and maybe you rest your hands somewhere on your front leg. Maybe you have a support. Maybe you have the reach to hook your big toe with index finger and middle finger. We're creating a length on the left side of the body. Right arm can reach up. Maybe your gaze turns towards your right hand, and we've got 2 more breaths in Utthita Trikonasana. You can turn your gaze down. Let's bend that front knee a little bit more. Inhale, come all the way up. Once you spin your feet to the left, and you might adjust your feet a little bit here. So I like to do this next pose with my feet on either side of the midline of my mat. And I like to roll my left heel back as far as it will go without losing the anchor under the left heel. So that was, previously we did Utthita Trikonasana. This one is Parvrita Trikonasana, which means revolved triangle. So we'll square now towards the right leg. Hinge forward, left hand is reaching towards the floor. And maybe it touches down on a block or a prop to the inside of right foot. Maybe it finds the floor. Maybe left hand finds the top of your right foot. For some, you may be able to reach across to the little toe side of your right foot with your left hand. See how much of this you can do from a rotation in your rib cage rather than a rotation of your shoulder girdle. Eventually, we're here. Right arm reaching up, maybe gaze up. You can look down, unlock your right knee, reach up with your right hand, spin all the way into the pose on the other side. The left toe space, the short edge of your mat. You'll kick that right heel out to the side, feet on either side of the midline, hinging forward. Right hand can touch down on a prop to the inside of your foot, on the floor on the inside, maybe on the top of your left foot, maybe to the little toe side. Rotating, see how much of this rotation can come from your ribs. And perhaps left arm reaches up. One more breath. Slightly bend your left knee. Inhale, pick yourself all the way up. Pivot onto your right toes. Step forward. Samasthiti. This is interesting. Symmetrical now after an asymmetrical series. Another chance for Svadhyaya. What does this feel like? Let's take one more breath in Samasthiti. Shift our weight into the left foot. Step the right foot back. Again, you want about a leg length between our feet, and you'll turn and face the long edge of your mat. Prasarita series. Prasarita means widespread. This is Prasarita Padottanasana, widespread foot poses. We'll take a look at our feet. We want the midlines of our feet more or less parallel, maybe even ever so slightly pigeon-toed. So you can internally rotate a little bit. We'll take our hands to our hips. Shoulders and elbows draw back, heart lifts, knees can be a little bit soft here. And we'll spill the ball of the pelvis forward over the heads of the femurs. This is another place where we might end up with weight back in our heels. So find the bases of your big toes. Let your weight shift a little forward. Hands will come to the floor under your chest. Let's inhale, lift to fingertips. Exhale, walk your hand between your feet. And we want to find head and hands on the point of an equilateral triangle. So we've got the same distance in each of these arcs of the triangle, wrists, elbows, shoulders, all the same distance apart. One more
more breath in Prasarita A. We'll inhale to fingertips. Exhale, hands to hips. Inhale, stand all the way up. Draw your elbows towards each other, lift your heart. Exhale, Prasarita B, hands stay on your hips. This is kind of nice. You can kind of get your fingers into the front of your hips and give yourself a little massage as we hold this one. Hinging forward, there's a little core strength involved as you try to draw your crown down towards the floor without the assistance of your arms. One more breath here. And this time when you inhale, come up in one big breath, reaching with your elbows long and strong in your spine. Stand all the way up. We'll take our arms out to the side. When you exhale, hands come behind you and fingers interlace. So maybe you're making fists with yourself like this. Maybe you're flexing your wrists and holding fingers. Maybe this isn't available and you've got a strap or a sock or something you can use to extend your reach. We're making contact between our hands. Inhale, shoulders roll back, heart lift. Exhale, knees are a little soft. Pelvis spills forward over the heads of the femurs. And now your fists lift off your sacrum. Crown of your head is headed towards the floor. Fists are headed towards the floor as you continue to reach through your arms. One more breath here. Again, with your inhalation, you come up on one big breath, reach with your fists. Let that upward lift carry you to standing. You can release the interlace, arms extend. Last one, we'll take hands back to our hips. Roll elbows back, lift our hearts. Exhale, hinge forward. This time we're headed back to the yogi grip. So we're trying to reach for our big toes. Index finger and middle finger between big toe and second toe, thumb wraps around. Getting a hold of your big toe, the inhalation lengthens your spine, the exhalation draws you into the pose, elbows can bend. Crown of your head is working its way to the floor between your feet. One more breath. And we'll inhale, lift halfway up. Exhale, release your grip, hands to your hips. Inhale, stand it all the way up. You can step or hop your feet together. And we'll come back to Samasthiti at the top of our mats. Beautiful. From Samasthiti, we're making our way back to Utkatasana. We're going to hold it for 5 breaths. Yay. Everyone's favorite pose. You can reach down. You can reach up. And we'll be here. So you've got some time to fine tune this. Glance down. See if you can see your big toes. I can't. I need to move my hips back a little bit. I'm hugging in from my inner ankles to my inner knees to my sitting bones. I'm hugging in through my belly. And I'm lengthening and reaching from the middle of my low back up towards my fingertips. I'm finding it easier here to bring my thumbs together. So I'm going to activate my little fingers towards each other. That might mean that I need to bring my hands out in front of me a little bit to do this. If your lats are a little on the tight side, you may find that bringing your arms up overhead peels your palms away from each other. So take your hands out in front if that's necessary. We've got 2 more breaths here. Next exhalation, dive forward, Uttanasana. We'll inhale and lift, Ardha Uttanasana. Exhale, you're headed through Vinyasa, back to Chaturanga. And upward dog. Exhale to downward dog, right foot will step forward. Left heel pivots to the floor. Inhale, Virabhadrasana 1, hold the warrior. So we're actively planting into your left heel. We're hugging inner thighs in. We're hugging belly in. You're planting into your right heel. Maybe that drops the head of your right femur a little more. So you can lengthen both sides of your waist equally as you turn your shoulders to the front of your mat. And you might even try bending your elbows, dropping your thumbs to the base of your neck as you hug your elbows in. And then reach up, lengthen any little bit more, look up. 2 more breaths. The next inhalation, you'll straighten your right leg, turn all the way around, facing the back of your mat, pivoting your feet. We're headed straight into Virabhadrasana 1 on the other side. So again, checking in, you can plant into both heels. You can ground your left heel, drop your femur a little more, and bring your ribs around. Maybe draw your head back, reach up. If you're finding tension in your chest, or if your little fingers are not quite in as much contact as your thumbs, you can take your hands out in front of you. Nice. So now you might need to scoot your feet a little farther apart here. I'm inching my left foot forward. Keep your left knee over your left ankle. Turn your chest and shoulders, Virabhadrasana 2. You're gazing out over your left middle finger. One more breath. You can almost pull with your hamstrings here to deepen this pose as you reach back with your right hand. We'll keep our arms extended. Extend the left leg, pivot our feet, and we're heading to Virabhadrasana 2 on the right. Stay anchored in your left heel, right knee bends, use your hamstrings, draw yourself into the pose as you reach your left hand back. One more huge Ujjayi breath here. Next exhalation, windmill your hands, reach for the floor, and flow through Vinyasa, Chaturanga. Upward facing dog. Exhale to downward facing dog. So we'll take a breath in our down dog, moving to seated now. So there's a couple of options. You can simply drop to your knees and shift your hips to one side, swing your feet out. If you have a jump through, you are welcome to jump through to sitting here. I'm somewhere in between. So I always come down like this, bending my knees, lifting my hips. I hop forward, cross my ankles just behind my wrists, and then swing my feet through. Moving to Dandasana, staff pose. You've got the bases of your big toes together. You can walk one sitting bone back, walk the other sitting bone back, maybe even lift both hips and tilt your sitting bones back. Make sure you're on the front of your sit bones, and hands will be down by your sides. So if you're finding that this is hard, you're kind of rounded back because of tension in your hamstrings, be welcome to bend your knees a little bit here or even elevate your hips. If you do elevate your hips, make sure you've got something to press your hands into. We want to press into whatever the height of our seat is. So we're pressing down into the mat or sitting prop, we're reaching out through our big toes, chest is lifting, chin is slightly lowering and drawing back. So we'll hold here for 5 breaths. And maybe as we hold Dandasana, this is a really interesting place to play with the bandhas, those energetic locks in the deep core muscles of our body. We've got Mula Bandha, that's a lift all the way from the very base of your pelvis between your sit bones up to just above your pubic bone, low belly. We've got Uddiyana Bandha flying up. That comes from around your navel up towards your ribs. And we've got Jalandhara Bandha, that's the lift at the roof of your mouth, your strong Ujjayi breath, and this action in your chin, reaching forward and then down and then back. That's Jalandhara Bandha. And Mula Bandha is meant to activate your energy and make it something that you can use. Uddiyana Bandha is meant to process your energy. Jalandhara Bandha is meant to contain your energy so nothing leaks. One more breath. Lovely. Let's take an inhalation from Dandasana. You can even bring your arms up by your ears. Your exhalation brings you to Paschimottanasana, hinging forward. Hands can find the backs of your knees. They can find your calves, your ankles, your feet. Bowing forward. Maybe allowing your spine to round, but only if you can hinge to an angle less than 90 degrees at your hip. Let's take one more exhalation here. We'll inhale, sit ourselves back up. Take this into the opposite stretch. So the gentlest version of the counter stretch to that will be to walk your hands back behind you, bend your knees, and just press your hands into the mat as you lift your heart. This could be your pose. A little bit more intense is to hug your inner thighs in, ground your feet, pull slightly with your heels, and elevate your hips. This is a little more intense. Full posture, Purvottanasana, looks like this. Inner edges of your feet touch, hands under your shoulders, lifting hips and rolling the soles of your feet all the way down to the mat, maybe dropping your head back. We'll keep lifting the sides of the pelvis, active legs. Two more breaths. You can exhale, lower your hips. Let's perch on our sit bones here. Cross your ankles, hug your legs in, maybe even grab your ankles, really hug in. And then put your hands on the floor next to your hips. Press down and try to lift your hips off the mat. Beautiful. We'll set our hips back down. Extend the left leg. Right foot comes about a hand's breadth from your left upper inner thigh. Let's just take a moment to sit tall here. Then you can take a hold of your right shin with your left hand, reach your right arm up, and as you exhale, twist. Twisting right hand to the floor behind you. You can press into your right hand just behind your sacrum, deepen this twist. And this might be your pose right here. If anyone feels it can go a little bit deeper, maybe left elbow comes to the outside of right knee. Maybe left hand reaches down towards right foot. Maybe, and I'm not sure I can even demonstrate it tonight, but we'll see. You might bind. You can turn your left thumb down, reach it around, maybe clasp your hands just to the outside of your left hip. If that does not feel like an effective twist though, let it go. Back off into a place you're getting an active twist in your spine. We can inhale, unbind, unwind. Once more, extend right leg. You'll bend your left. Sole of your left foot now comes about a hand's breadth from your right upper inner thigh. We can start here, just sitting tall. In the left sit bone drop down, finding some depth in the left hip crease. And then you can hug your left shin with your right arm, reach your left arm up, exhale, twist. See if you can twist from your core, from your ribs. We'll circle left hand back behind us. You press your left hand into the floor as you continue to rotate. Maybe right elbow comes to the outside of left knee. Or right hand reaches down towards left foot. Maybe you find the bind. Or not. If that doesn't feel effective, back off into a pose where you feel a smooth, effective twist the whole length of your spine. We'll inhale, unwind. Help yourself back to Dandasana. And then again, rock back on your sit bones, cross your ankles. Now, if you can remember which way you crossed your shins last time, cross them the other way this time. I can't remember, I'm just gonna guess. So I'll cross my ankles, sit tall, balance, hands to the floor, and lift. All right, setting your hips back down on the floor, Navasana. So we'll be centered on our mats. You want to be toward the front of your sitting bones if you can. We'll think about lifting through our hearts, getting lots of length, distance between ribs and pelvis, at the same time as stabilizing ribs to pelvis. We'll rock our shoulders back, take our heads back. Feet can rock up and off the floor. This could be your boat. Maybe you're feeling a little stronger and you want to bring your arms up. Maybe you're feeling really strong and you'd like to bring your legs out. Maybe you're feeling really, really strong and you'd like to keep your arms and legs parallel. We've got 4 breaths left. Beautiful. You can exhale, release your feet, give your knees a hug, sit tall. All right, one more round. You can come back to your boat, any variation that you choose. So knees bent, fingers behind the knees, reaching, or you can try getting back into that yogi grip. See if you can hook your big toes with your fingers. And balance. Nice. Exhale, release your feet, cross your ankles, hands to the floor, lift yourself up. Beautiful. We'll lower. Soles of your feet touch down. Let's come down onto our backs. So place your feet now, the width of your hips. Fingers in line with your heels. Maybe you can even touch your heels with your fingertips. When you glance up at your knees should be the distance of your hips. And when I say that, I mean hip sockets, not what you think your hip width is. So we want our thigh bones parallel here. You can tuck your shoulder blades under you. Let's take a moment here to release our groins towards the floor. I know after the boat pose, sometimes it's a little bound up in your hip creases. So let's let those get deep and heavy. Let's let our belly sink down towards the floor. And then as you lift into your bridge, pull slightly with your heels. So you're using hamstrings, you're using glutes. Hips are lifting up and knees are moving away from you. So we're going to lift up without squeezing too much in our glutes. We're pressing into our feet. Thigh bones are dropping to the backs of the hip sockets. This might be your pose. If you'd like to come a little deeper, you can rock from shoulder to shoulder. Move your arms closer together. Maybe you interlace fingers behind your back and press your little fingers into the floor, lift a little higher. We keep grounding into our feet. There's a sense of activating the outer edges of your feet towards the edges of your mat. There's a sense of pressing into the bases of your big toes, especially if you have any tightness in your hips. You may find your knees popping out to the side here, so we'll use the inner thighs. For 2 more breaths, lengthen and broaden your breastbone. It gets longer, it gets wider, and you get a little buoyancy at your heart. You can exhale, release your hips back down to the floor. Once your sacrum touches down, it might feel really good to hug your knees, draw some circles, maybe a happy baby pose. And we'll take one more back bend of your choice. You can come back to the bridge. If you're familiar with Urdhva Dhanurasana, upward bow, sometimes called full wheel, you can come in that direction. So we're coming to the full wheel, hands come over your shoulders. Once more, we get that softness in the groins. We get the lengthening of tailbone towards our knees. You'll lift yourself up, brush your head against the floor, no weight. Hug your elbows in, lengthen the back of your neck, and then extend your arms. come out of the full wheel or out of Urdhva Dhanurasana, you'll tuck your chin, come down onto the back of your head and the backs of your shoulders, and again, hug your knees in. From here, hands can come behind your knees as rock and roll a few times. Eventually rock up to sitting and find your meditation posture. So that might mean one foot in front of the other in Siddhasana. It might mean Sukhasana, legs crossed. It might mean half lotus or full lotus. If you're comfortable in a full lotus, feel free to go there. We'll just give ourselves a few breaths of observation, of centering, of stillness before relaxation. Backs of your hands can come to your knees. You can take your hands into Gyan Mudra, index fingers and thumbs touching, arms extended, chin softening to the hollow at the top of your breastbone. Coming back to your slow and steady breath. Slow it down even more. Each cycle of breath is a little bit longer, a little bit more profound. Maybe the pauses between the breaths begin to lengthen as well. Finally, you can release the mudra in your hands. You can unfold your legs. Release down onto your back for a comfortable resting posture. And then tighten everything. Hug your belly in, make fists, stretch up your face, lift your arms and legs, tighten, 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 tighten. Exhale through your mouth, let it all go. And be where you land. Shavasana now, the pose in which we integrate all of this practice. Letting go of the control of breath. Letting go of the work in our bodies. And simply observing the activity of our minds. The thoughts ebb and flow. Attention and emotions shift and change. And you simply experience. The thoughts and the emotions are like clouds reflected in the surface of a lake. They just move through and they're gone. They have no effect on the lake. I will leave you here to enjoy your relaxation for as long as it suits you. Stay here, rest, breathe, enjoy. Let your body integrate the practice. Thank you so much for joining me.